Well, I think it's vitally important, no matter what your playing background was. Teaching and coaching is completely different. Some it will fall naturally for and to, but there's lots of elements of teaching and coaching young people and players which requires knowledge, and for you to gain that knowledge you need to go out, you need to research, you need to find it, and if you're going to be the very best that you can be, then it's very important that you can enroll on courses. Obviously, when I was a young player, from when I first could kick a football, 2-3 years of age, and then for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a player. And no doubt that is the best thing that you can be in sport and when you're involved in football, is to be the player. Unfortunately, when it falls short, for whatever reason of that, whether it's through injury or through not being good enough, or you lose interest, whatever the reason, the next best thing is obviously coaching. You may not have if you haven't had the big background as a player, of course that helps, but it still doesn't guarantee you anything. Likewise, if you're not, you have to work. You have to be able to devote your time to it. So there's no template in terms of becoming a top coach or a top manager. You have to create your own pathway. I always say the quality of your life is the quality of your communication. I always had a love of languages. I always admired people that spoke more than one language. So I looked to go out and speak other languages, just in order to help people, as I seen it as part of my coaching. I'd always hoped that I could work with a numbers of nationalities, different cultures, in order to help them be the best that they could be. I like to have people that are very hardworking, people that have confidence, people that have good levels of optimism. This is a field in coaching that I'm in where poor results can affect behaviours and attitudes, but I tend to want to be as optimistic as we possibly can. I like my personalities around me to have that aggression and be tenacious and achieve what it is they want to achieve, and to have enthusiasm. I think when I was a young coach, I would have very focused much on a sports psychology. But when you work in football and you're working with players between 16 and 35, it's not just solely about imagery, and which is based around sports psychology. Sometimes there's a clinical issue with players, which requires a psychological approach. I think it's about having a clear vision. If I look at my recent example here now at Celtic, when I came in on my first day, I presented how it looked for the future. Celtic was a winning club, but we wanted to create this one club, one vision mentality. And for that, I needed to present to them how I see it look in the future. And then promote that and promote the standards of what we want it to be and do every single day. If you say speak only one language, or you only speak your native language, and then you go into a dynamic where there's different cultures and different language sets, then sometimes it's difficult, because if you're a young and inexperienced coach, you can go quiet on the ones who don't speak English. But they need it, they just can't speak it. What you learn through experience is that you need to find a way in order to communicate with your players. So you have to ask questions. And if you can't speak directly with them on it, then you need to find a way. Yeah, I think if you're leading, it's very important that your people above you, or your bosses, they understand the direction that you're trying to work in. You know, football's a business now, so lots of companies, lots of football clubs now are very much run as a company, and these people who they might be a billionaire, they might be multiple owners of a club, they like to know the direction in which the club is heading. So the ability to communicate that vision, of course, and sell that vision is very important. Your skill set in terms of communication has to, you have to know your audience. When I first lost my job at Reading when I was a young coach, I was an aspiring coach, became a manager, and then I made a mistake and left one of my jobs too early. And then I then got relieved of my duties at Reading. And that first time was very, very difficult. When it happened at Liverpool, the second time, I was in a much better place. I was fortunate enough where financially I didn't have the need to go back in to work the next day. When I left Reading, and I was out of the game for 6 months, but financially, really, I should have walked into a job the next day because I needed it. I didn't need that at Liverpool, so the pressure wasn't the same. But I think the approach is just to work and know that and understand that in this modern world and modern football, you're going to lose your job. Experience will help you, but of course, it's also having inherent belief in your ability.